Welcome, everyone, to the NFL Props Show. NFL Week 3 already here, kicking off on Thursday night with the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. Here to get into, of course, our player props for Week 3. We'll recap our picks from last week. We'll get into some big picture stuff happening around the NFL. Of course, give you our player props for Week 3 at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. Get you guys a promo code for pregame.com, and we'll preview one of the Monday night football games that is happening in NFL Week 3, and of course our player prop best bet for Monday night football. But joining me here to help me break everything down happening on the grass and to give our player or their player props as well, I've got my guy here with me. It's Steve Reider. Steve, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Nothing, man. Stoked for Week 3 here. We obviously had a good podcast last week and hoping to continue that success today.
Yeah, 100%. Last week was a really, really good week. We'll get into that here in a second. But also joining us here is the man himself. It's SleepyJ. Sleepy, what's going on, brother?
Oh, it's just been a nightmarish day. My daughter is turning 13 here on Saturday. So
Ooh.
I've been doing a lot of running around town, grabbing party stuff all day long. So yeah, it's if you don't have a 13-year-old daughter, I know you don't, Munaf, and I'm not sure that Steve does. You
Not
guys
that
are in
old.
for it.
Yeah.
You're in for it.
Steve made a little grimace there. I'm not. Yeah, I don't think. I know he has kids, but not there yet.
I can tell you 6 years old is bad enough, man. I can't imagine 13. So God bless you, Sleepy. That's why he's
I
drinking
thought
something there.
I thought 16 months was bad, but here we are, gentlemen. Recapping what we saw or what we did last week, it was a really, really good podcast as far as the props that we did give out. Between the four each that we did give out, 10 and 2 on those player props between the four, I should say the three of us. Got a little bit of trouble with our only two losses, I should say, was the quarterback props that Sleepy and I did give out. I did lose to Anthony Richardson by about a couple yards there, but overall 10 and 2, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. I know we got a lot of tweets from our listeners parlaying our player props together, having a nice week and playing them straight. So hopefully we can carry that momentum into Week 3. The downfall was we did not hit our player prop best bet for Monday Night Football. Fell a little bit short there. Again, I think the handicap was correct on that. Bijan Robinson definitely got the targets and the touches, but he just wasn't able to equate it to yards. But again, we are 1-1 for that. But hopefully we can find a winner on Monday Night Football for NFL Week 3. Guys, let's get into some big picture stuff here in the NFL. I mean, we've seen a couple teams that are surprisingly 0-2 here. More in case I wanted to ask both of you gentlemen about the Baltimore Ravens. We saw in Week 1, yeah, it was against the defending Super Bowl champions. I maybe had their number a little bit. But last week, Week 2 was, I don't want to say it was telling, but it was a shocking result, I think, for not only bettors, but also I know it was the most popular pick in Survivor, especially in Circle Survivor here. They had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. They just weren't able to close it out. Steve, let me start with you. The Ravens 0-2, and we know that it's very, very difficult for teams that do start 0-2 to make it even to the postseason. And Week 3, look, I know they're going on the road. They are favored by a point in Dallas, but again, that's not an easy place to play. So, I mean, there's a possibility that this Ravens team could start 0-3. Are you pressing the alarm button? Are you panicking if you are a Ravens fan? But what's your thoughts on the Ravens thus far?
I think when you look at the Ravens right now, if I'm a fan, I'm disappointed, obviously. And, it's very easily they can go 0-3, kind of like you said right now. Dallas is a great team that played poorly last week, had a good Week 1. So they've kind of proven that they can win. We know what they were. Both of these teams, when you talk about Baltimore and Dallas, are kind of similar in the sense that in the offseason, they were both bet down in the marketplace, win total marketplace. And, Baltimore, I think people are down on them more than people realize. And there was grave concerns about that offensive line. But, with everything being said, it's two games that we're looking at here right now. They obviously lost to the Chiefs. They probably should have won, could have won. And in this past week, like you mentioned, they were up by double digits late in the game. And there's been a history of that team and Lamar Jackson surrendering those leads in recent years. So that is something that they need to work out. And obviously, that line is going to be a problem moving forward. That's not something that's going to be fixed. And I think what's great about the Ravens right now is that they still have Lamar Jackson and his athleticism. As the year goes on, I mentioned on the podcast previously, I'm concerned about that. Is he going to be able to stay healthy throughout this whole time, taking the hits that he does? Because so much of that offense derives from what he's able to bring it. So I'd be concerned as a Raven fan. I do think there's a great possibility they do start 0-3. I have a small lean to the Cowboys. But again, it's only 2 weeks and they could turn this around. They could blow out Dallas in Dallas and we'd be jumping back on the bandwagon. You know, so much of the offseason work that you want to just toss out the window because we have 2 data points. You can't do that. Just factoring into it. You know, I've lowered them down in the power ratings, but I still have them. You know, I probably could tell you in a moment here what I actually have them on here. I have them in my power ratings that are slowly loading here. I still have them the 4th best team tied with Houston right now. And maybe that's given a little bit too much to them. Maybe I should knock them down just slightly. But, you know, they're definitely in that top 5, 6 range, even though they are 0-2. They're flawed for sure.
Sleepy, thoughts on the Ravens thus far through the first 2 weeks?
I'm not concerned at all about this team. I think that one of the things I noticed, at least going back to last year and now again this year, is that, you know, you take away the preseason game, you add an extra regular season game, you take players out of pads and you shorten practices. And I think it really throws a wrench into the preparation that, you know, that these teams are taking on here. And I think that maybe the Ravens or a couple other teams out there too, that just we expected to be better and they just looked lost. And I think it has something to do with that. I'm with Steve. I think the Ravens are certainly one of the top 5 best teams. They have top 5 talent across the board. So I'm not worried about them. I think if they lose this game against Dallas, you maybe could, you know, raise an eyebrow. But if they do lose the game against Dallas, I would be excited to probably go ahead and bet them to go ahead and win the division at a really good price because I don't trust any other team in that division right now. So that would kind of be what I would be looking to do with Baltimore. As of right now, I'm not terribly concerned. I'm more concerned with the way that some of these teams have looked to go ahead and open up the year. And I really think that that's, you know, the fact that the preseason has just been cut down a little bit and practices are a little bit limited and guys aren't, you know, excited to go ahead and get into camp. So that's kind of where I'm at with Baltimore right now.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the rest of the division, right? Steelers starting 2-0, but you could say, I mean, yeah, they've played the Falcons in week 1. They went into Denver against the Broncos, against a rookie quarterback there. And the defense has really been playing well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe when they do play some of the better competition, where you do have to score touchdowns to win football games, I think that at some point we'll probably catch up with the Steelers. And you take a look at the Browns, team that I really wasn't high on coming into the season. Yeah, they got the victory against Jacksonville. I think that was a fortunate win for them as well. But you saw also have to wonder where Deshaun Watson is at mentally, right? He had some stuff going off the field in the off season. We saw another lawsuit popping up with him there as well. So we'll see. And then again with the Cincinnati Bengals, I don't think you're too much concerned about that team. And then for the Baltimore Orioles, I agree with you guys as well. I think this team will be okay. But again, this is a big week for the Baltimore Ravens going into Dallas. Don't want to fall to 0-3. One more news-worthy note I did want to get to here before we do get to our player props. Maybe something that was inevitable because of his play, and that is going to be the quarterback change that is happening in Carolina. The Bryce Young does get benched. We got that news earlier this week. Andy Dalton will get the start in Vegas this week against the Raiders. Did see this line around 7.5 in favor of the Raiders. Once Andy Dalton was announced as the starter, taking the place of Bryce Young, this line now went down to 5.5. Starting to see 5s out there in favor of the Raiders here. But Sleepy, let me start with you on this. For the Panthers, a lot of it, I believe, I don't think it's coaching because there's a new head coach, but I think a lack of skill position, the talent there is just lacking there a little bit. And a lot of times we talk about these rookie quarterbacks that are just thrown into the fire in week 1, and they just had this expectation. I think there was a big expectation, obviously, for Bryce Young to be the number 1 overall pick, but it just seems like he's a little, I don't want to say lost out there, but the confidence may be lacking a little bit. And I think this probably came more down from the owner and the front office versus the coaching change here, Sleepy. But what are your thoughts on this quarterback change now from Bryce Young to Andy Dalton, and what does the future hold for Bryce Young, maybe with the Carolina Panthers going forward?
This can only be a good thing for Bryce Young, I think, because he's not going to go out there and he's not going to get killed. I mean, this team's absolutely terrible. Their offensive line is brutal. I mean, this kid's out there running for his life every play. So, I mean, if I were Bryce Young, and I know that this is never the approach. Go out there and you speak up and say, like, I'm out there running for my life. This team's not good. Go out there and throw the team under the bus. Throw the general manager under the bus. Because you know what they'll do? They're either going to take accountability, make a change within what they're doing, or they're going to ship your ass out of town, which could be a very good thing for somebody like Bryce Young. Give him at least a team with some talent. This team has no talent. I don't even know if there's a Pro Bowl player on this roster. So this team's absolutely terrible. And I get it. Like, look, you're the quarterback. You're supposed to be the leader. Go ahead and take all the bullets and arrows that are coming your way. And that's, that's the way it is. But in today's NFL, we see it. Quarterbacks, coaches, if you don't win, there's a good chance you're out of town next year. You're fired. So if I'm Bryce Young, I know it's, not traditionally what they do, but go out there and throw your team under the bus, throw your general manager under the bus. What's the worst that's going to happen? You can just say, I don't even want to play with these guys anymore. They're that bad. And you can maybe figure it out and fix it with the next team. That's what I would do, because this team's so bad. He's going to get hurt, or his career is going to end up in a situation where we've seen quarterbacks come through Cleveland. We've seen quarterbacks come through the Jets that, were high draft picks that never panned out because the team was just terrible. So I feel bad for the kid. I think he has talent, but I think it's going to be hard for us to discover it with this Panthers team.
I mean, like we've seen other quarterbacks that haven't been successful that were high draft picks, right? Guys like the Baker Mayfields of the world, the Sam Darnolds of the world. And I know it's a very small sample right now for Sam Darnold, but he seems like he's resurrected a little bit with the Minnesota Vikings, and they're sitting at 2-0. We saw what Baker was able to do with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year and also to start this year as well. So I think that opportunity is going to be there for Bryce Young. It's still very, very early in his career, obviously in his second year for the Carolina Panthers. Steve, what are your thoughts on this quarterback change here?
Yeah, I'm coming from a different perspective with it. I think Bryce Young is, I don't want to say solely to blame. I mean, I agree with Sleepy in some respect. There's probably not a Pro Bowl player on the roster right now. But they did spend a lot of money to try to fix that offensive line. And I think that you saw improvements in there right now. I mean, there is a pocket for him to throw to. There was receivers that are open, and he's just missing the mark. I think he's, top 5 in almost every metric that measures how far off a target a pass is. So I think there's a lot of accountability that he needs to take. He needs to look in the mirror. If I'm being honest, I think that his career is probably over. I don't know if he gets another shot here. I understand what the coaches are saying. I understand that they have to say that. And frankly, him going out there and getting into this routine and this rhythm of just constantly failing is got to be demoralizing. So I think sitting him down is not the worst thing to do. I just don't see him coming back out. And if he didn't start a game again, it would not surprise me. I think Andy Dalton is a better option right now. I moved it up 2 points in my rankings, but it's not something that I totally trust because he hasn't played much. One of the things I'm really looking for right now is I want to see what he actually does on Sunday, watch the game. If he's playing great, that might be a live bet for me. It may be something that in the future, I'm just looking down the road and I have more power ratings that are kind of more accurate for what I feel for the game. But right now, Bryce Young is certainly not a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if Andy Dalton is, but I know he's not a Bryce Young. I know what Bryce Young is. He's not ready to play right now. I hope for his sake, he gets better and, proves me wrong. I'm not looking for his demise, but I just call it like I see it right now. And he's not somebody that is worth a second look for right now.
All right, let's turn the page here. Let's turn our attention to NFL Week 3. Let's get into our player props here. We'll start with the quarterback position here. Sleepy, why don't you lead us off? What's your quarterback prop going into Week 3?
All right, so my quarterback prop going to be Las Vegas Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew, over 217.5 passing yards. Raiders, they get the Panthers, and the Panthers defense right now is absolutely terrible. Teams are just blowing out Carolina, and I think that there's a potential that could happen again. But, teams are running the ball late against this Carolina Panthers team, and I tend to think that, the Panthers with Andy Dalton, that they could at least keep this a little bit close to have the Raiders going ahead and continue to pass, at least for a large portion of this game. Minshew, he leads the league right now in completion percentage. He's not doing anything right now that he can't, or they're asking him to do. It looks like he's kind of doing it. I think the Panthers' lack of pass rush, I think that's going to help Minshew here, and he's going to make all the easy throws that he needs to make. He's been making them for 2 weeks now. I think Minshew probably in line for maybe his biggest passing game of the year. I love the completion percentage, and I love the fact that the Panthers did make a quarterback change, and I think that could at least keep this close because I do worry about a blowout and then somebody like Minshew just going out there handing the ball off. But I don't think that's going to happen here. 217.5 seems a little bit low. He has some big playmakers in Bowers and Adams, so I like Minshew over his passing yards, 217.5 for my quarterback prop.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked a lot about how bad the offense has been, but the attention hasn't really even been talked about how bad the defense has been, in particular pass defense for this Carolina Panthers team. And we saw week one what Derek Carr and that offense was able to do last week. Justin Herbert, whether it was it through the air, but more importantly on the ground there for the Chargers. I mean, they were able to get whatever they want, and now you have to go up against this Raiders offense, like Sleepy mentioned there with Devontae Adams there with Brock Bowers had a great start thus far to his rookie campaign. I think that again, they got their hands full again. I'll say that much. So I couldn't talk you off of this one here for Gardner Minshew. Steve, take us over to your quarterback prop, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Kyler Murray's over rushing yards here. I gave it out at 30.5, and frankly, it's up to 32 now, but I still like it. I still think we got some little bit of wiggle room here. Take a look at Kyler Murray this year against Buffalo, 5 carries for 57 yards versus the Rams, 5 carries for 59 yards. Last year coming back off of injury, he clips this number in 5 of the 8 games that he played. And he was injured the whole time. I mean, this guy was literally coming back from a lower leg injury to come back in and play, and he was still rushing the ball effectively. Detroit has a good defense, but they have struggled historically against running quarterbacks due to their man pressure looks. So I think that provides some opportunities. And I know, they haven't really faced someone that is a scrambling quarterback this year. So let's take a look at last year, right? Same coordinators, relatively the same players on the field. Justin Fields last year, 12 for 58. Taysom Hill, who was in a quarterback role in this particular game, 13 to 59. Jordan Love had 39 yards. Lamar Jackson, 9 to 36. Mahomes, 6 to 45. These people are eclipsing that 30 mark pretty relatively easy here. And I think that's kind of in the wheelhouse for Kyler Murray. I said that they haven't gone up against a scrambling quarterback this year. They did go against Baker Mayfield. He had 5 carries for 34 yards. So that actually aids to what we're talking about here as well. I think it's going to be a close game, but the lines are favored, which means that Kyler could get that backdoor cover opportunity. And if he's going to do that, a lot of time there's a prevent defense, a lot of opportunity for him to run the ball. If there is no looks that he likes down the field, he has no problem tucking it and running. I like and I bet Kyler Murray over 30 rushing yards. And at the current mark of 32.5, I think we still got some value.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off of this. I mean, we talk about these scrambling quarterbacks, and it's just in their nature, right? And especially with Kyler Murray, that maybe his first read's not there, his second read's not there. But I think case in point last week that he can utilize his legs to make plays, whether it's throwing the ball down the field or more importantly, utilizing his legs to, gain some yards and finding those open holes in the defense and getting down the field. So, yeah, I honestly, I like this all the way up to 50. I mean, if you were a one of those players that like the ladder these props up, I think Kyler Murray's in line to have a really good game on the ground for the Arizona Cardinals. All right, for my first quarterback prop here, I'm going to go over to that game between the Tennessee Titans and the Green Bay Packers. And I know that we did see reports that Jordan Love did return to practice, but I'm in the camp that I don't think he plays this week. I don't think you need to rush him back at all, especially talking about knee injury. He's going to be your franchise quarterback of the future. You paid him a whole heck of a lot of money, and they got the win last week, did the Green Bay Packers. So again, no real reason to rush him. So Malik Willis, I'm looking to take the under on his passing yards this week, and it's a low number. It's at 149.5, but it's more that we haven't really talked about this Titans defense and how good they've been. All the conversation has been about Will Levis and the stupidity that's been out there and some of the questionable decisions that he's making. And we take a look at the 2 quarterbacks that the Titans have faced thus far this season, right? Caleb Williams in week 1 was 14 of 29, 93 yards. And I understand that was his first game. Did have a great outing. And then last week they went up against Aaron Rodgers, 18 of 30. He did have 176 yards. But I think for Malik Willis, you had something last week that was working well for you, and it was Josh Jacobs, right? Whether it was through the ground mostly. But I think, like I mentioned this last week, is they're going to have some reliance on their defense. And last week against the Colts, he only threw for 122 yards. So you're not really going to need Malik Willis' arm in this game. I think the Titans defense will be up to the task. So I'm taking the under 149.5 right now for Malik Willis here. Sleep. Any thoughts on this prop here for Malik Willis under 149.5?
Well, I hope you're right. It was nice to see my Packers go ahead and win. I don't know. I look at that guy when he played with the Titans, and I was scared, going ahead and messing putting any money on him. So maybe he can go ahead and continue. I hope that he does. I wish you all the best of luck, my friend.
All right, let's turn the page here. Let's get over to our running back props here. Sleepy, lead us off. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to go with Cleveland Browns running back Jerome Ford over 49.5 rushing yards. The Giants, they have one of the worst rush defenses in the league right now, fifth worst rush defense. Cleveland, I think being here at home and being one of the biggest favorites of the week, that should help them from needing to not throw the football late. Jerome Ford last week, he was pretty good. Only ran the ball 7 times, had 64 yards. That's 9.1 yards per carry. I think with limited touches last week, that should go ahead and have him, super duper fresh for this week. The Browns, I think they need to lean into that rushing attack and let Watson, not go out there and screw things up or put him in a position to where, he's going to go ahead and fail. I think the Browns running back Jerome Ford has a big week. I'm going to play him over 49.5 rushing yards.
Steve, any thoughts on Jerome Ford for this week?
I think you could do a lot worse than fading backing people going against the Giants. They haven't been good at really anything in that Giants side of the ball. Honestly, Jerome Ford, I'm not a huge fan of as far as a running back goes, but I think he's going to get a lot of looks. The line is 6.5. So you think that they'd be up and be able to run the ball. I think you're going to get an all-in effort from the Giants, but frankly, as far as this particular play, I think in the grand scheme of things, you're probably going to get to that number pretty easy.
Giants allowing 5.3 yards per carry to the running backs. That is the 4th worst in the entire league, at least through the first 2 weeks here. Steve, take us over to your running back prop, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going back to the well here with J.K. Dobbins. And, he dropped 131 yards against the Panthers last week, 135 in the opener versus the Raiders. And this number is pretty low. We're sitting at 49.5 right now. And in fact, the opener was 54 and it got bet down. And I understand the concern. Pitts D is 4th in the league right now in defensive rush EPA. But it's such a small sample size. We only have 2 games right now to go from. If we go back to last year and see where Pitt was, they were above average for sure, but not to the success that they've had this year. So I think as the season plays out, you're going to see some regression. With the Chargers, they have Herbert that's hobbled. His ankle is completely taped up. I do expect him to play, but this is going to be a low-scoring game. It's reflected in the total. I think it's going to be close. You see it in the line. So they have a coach that wants to lean on the run and that offensive line. They're built to do so. Dobbins and Edwards started the year splitting work, but the cream rises to the top. It's very apparent to me that Dobbins is light years ahead of Edwards at this point. And I think the coaching staff realizes this, and he actually won the lion's share of the carries last week. And I think it's going to continue to this game as well. I expect a major drop-off from his 130-yard performances that we saw. I don't think that's obviously sustainable, but we don't even need half that production to win this one. So I'm going back to the well. Give me over 50 yards rushing for J.K. Dobbins.
I mean, look, through the first 2 weeks, he's had long carries of 61 against the Raiders and 43 against the Carolina Panthers. And almost seems like he's almost getting that in almost one rush there. And I think that home run ability, we talked, that explosiveness, I think that J.K. Dobbins has really been thriving with the running game here, especially behind that line for the Los Angeles Chargers. So I had a feeling going to go back to him again, but again, I can't talk you off just because of what he's been able to do through the first 2 weeks here. So yeah, it's great to see J.K. Dobbins number one healthy and just, having the production that he does have. 266 yards thus far this season on the ground. That is number one early in the NFL season here. All right, I'll go over to my running back prop here. I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara over 66.5 rushing yards here. And look, they're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles, and we know how bad this defense is, whether it's been on the ground or whether it's been through the air. We saw what Kirk Cousins was able to do through the air in that final drive to get them the go-ahead touchdown. But you also take a look at what running backs have been able to do against the Eagles thus far this season. And let's go back to week 1. Josh Jacobs, 16 carries, 84 yards, 5.25 yards per carry. Emmanuel Wilson, 4 carries, 46 yards, 11.5 yards per carry. Last week against the Falcons, Bijan Robinson, 14 carries, 97 yards, 6.93 yards per carry. And then Tyler Algier also contributed with 9 carries, 53 yards, 5.89 yards per carry. And it seems like Alvin Kamara has turned the clock back, and he looks like he's back in his Pro Bowl form because he's had an absolutely fantastic start thus far to the season for the Saints and how well that offense has been clicking. Week 1, we talked about how bad the Panthers defense has been, especially on the ground, 15 carries, 83 yards. And then last week against the Dallas Cowboys, 20 attempts, 115 yards on the ground for Alvin Kamara. I know the snap count's going to be there. He's pretty much the primary guy in that backfield. I know they're still dealing with some injuries there. I know Jamal Williams is there as a second guy there, but it's also more of a fade of this Philadelphia Eagles defense. 6.4 yards per carry they are allowing per rush attempt. And then you take a look overall, just what they've given up on the ground on average, 140 yards on the ground here. So this game expected to see a lot of points here. I think Alvin Kamara will be heavily involved in the offense as he has been over the first 2 weeks for this New Orleans Saints offense. So I'm going Alvin Kamara over 66.5 rushing yards here, Sleepy.
I like it. I considered it. I actually went with the wide receiver in this game for the Saints, but after I watched what Bijan Robinson did to that Eagles defensive line, just running through them like it was like a hot knife through butter, you have to have your concerns for Philadelphia all around on the defensive side. The wide receiver prop that I went with, guy from the Saints, wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, I'm going to go ahead and play him over 48.5 receiving yards. He leads the Saints in targets, catches, and yards this season. He's without a doubt the Saints' #1 deep threat. And the Eagles have 2 big issues, at least what I've seen through the first 2 weeks on defense. Number one, they're failing to get to the quarterback with the pass rush, and that's allowing teams to throw the deep pass on them. Philadelphia has given up 3 touchdowns this year of 33, 41, and 70 yards. So teams are throwing deep on them, and you have a guy like Carr who's gone deep in both of these games this season, and he's getting it to Shaheed. I think Shaheed probably ends up with at least 1-2 big catches in this game, but the fact that this guy's getting 8-9 targets a game, the way that Philly is really just trying to cover the wide receiver right now, especially deep, it's just like they're fighting a losing battle. This Philly defense is not that good. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I looked to fade them last week. So I like Derek Carr. I think he's playing really well. I think he's going to go to Shaheed here. I'm going to play him over 48.5 receiving yards.
Steve, any thoughts on Rashid Shaheed for this week?
Yeah, you talked about J.K. Dobbins having that big play potential. I mean, Shaheed could get this in 1 catch. I mean, easily in the first drive. Who would be surprised by that, honestly? And everything Sleepy said, from the lack of the pass rush, from the concerns in the secondary for the Eagles, from Derek Carr looking his way and looking to take that deep shot down the field with the new offensive coordinator here. There's nothing really not to like about this one. I'm in agreement with Sleepy.
Week 1, 59-yard reception against the Carolina Panthers, and then last week, like Sleepy mentioned, 70 yards against the Dallas Cowboys as a long reception. All right, Steve, take us over to your wide receiver prop here, man. What do you got?
Yeah, so I'm breaking the rules again because there's really no ref in this game. I originally was leaning towards Malik Neighbors. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But this Cleveland team is fantastic defensively, and I think they're really going to target him and make sure they shut him down. If you shut him down, the Giants haven't really proven that they have any other offensive weapons that can scare you. So we're not doing that. Why waste time talking about something we're not going to take? Jamar Chase, we're going to get to in a little bit. That was something I really liked, but that's something that we all agree upon. I guess I'm foreshadowing here. Not going to talk specifically what it is. I guess you're going to have to hang out to see what it is. So we're going to pivot to the running back spot here. Aaron Jones, who is a great receiver out of the backfield, and I wouldn't be surprised if he catches some passes here. But where I don't like him is against that Houston run defense. I'm taking under 49 rushing yards, and I'll double check that, make sure that line is still accurate. Houston sported one of the best run defenses last season. This season, they're below average, right? So you look at the numbers, 2 games, small sample size. Why are they so poor? It's because they played 2 running quarterbacks. It inflated those numbers considerably. If you take the quarterback rushes out of the stats, here's the running back stats in week 1 against Chicago. 17 carries for 27 yards. Against Jonathan Taylor, on 16 carries, he only had 48 yards. That's it. Inefficient numbers, wildly inefficient. Aaron Jones is a great pickup for the Vikings. He had 14 carries, 94 yards against the Giants. That production waned against the Niners, 9 carries for only 32 yards, another inefficient game. Niners do have a good defense with that. Let's take a look at the other offensive weapons for Minnesota. Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the game, limited in practice this week. He's playing. He's going to play in the game. We know he's going to play. But again, he is limited. Jordan Addison hasn't practiced. I don't think he's going to play. So if Sam Darnold, who's looked great this season, amazing revelation for the Purple People Eaters, but he's down his wide receiver number 2, who's been banged up all season. I want to get that out there. I understand. And the best receiver in the game doesn't look 100% because he is injured. What is Houston going to do? They're going to focus on doubling Jefferson, taking him away, and then certainly stopping that Vikings run game. I expect Aaron Jones to have that success in the receiving game. I don't think it's going to be on the ground. I'm on Aaron Jones under 49 rushing yards. And just for an updated number, it's gone down a little bit to 48.5. So we're going to have to go 48.5 to keep myself honest here. So 48.5, but you see some movement already.
Yeah, and I can speak to this. I mean, this defensive line for the Houston Texans and that linebacking core has been absolutely fantastic. And like you mentioned, it was telling that they were able to hold Jonathan Taylor to only 48 rushing yards on 16 carries. And we know the Bears' rush defense is pretty much, their rushing attack has been pretty much non-existent. And that front line, that front 7 for this Texans team has been absolutely fantastic. So I think if you're going to have to utilize Aaron Jones, it's going to have to be with screen passes, whether it's in the flat hook routes, whatever the case might be. I agree that he's not going to have a lot of success on the ground here for the Minnesota Vikings in this game against the Texans. All right, so my turn now. Yeah, for the wide receiver prop here. I'm going to go over to that game between the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. And this might be an ugly game with all the injuries that are transpiring for both sides of the both teams here, I should say. And more so, we got some more news about the San Francisco 49ers. We obviously know no CMC. We know that George Kittle popped up on the injury report as of Thursday. So it seems like it's going to have to be obviously no Debo there as well. So it's going to have to be Juwan Jennings. It's going to have to be Jordan Mason. It's going to have to be Brandon Ayuk. And I think this is going to be the game where Brandon Ayuk gets attention, which I believe this opens up the opportunities for Juwan Jennings. And that number right now is at 42.5 for Juwan Jennings. And you take a look, number one, about the history of Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, right? And I think that we know that Kyle Shanahan's had a lot of success. But when you're running out of options here, you're going to have to throw the ball to someone. But you take a look at Juwan Jennings. I think the targets, number one, are going to be up there for him this week. Week 1 against the Jets, 5 targets, 5 receptions, 64 yards. Last week, 2 receptions, 4 targets, 37 yards. So he's on the cusp of this. Number right now is at 42.5 for Juwan Jennings. The targets are definitely going to be up, like we mentioned, because of all the injuries that they are dealing with on the offensive side. And I think that attention is going to be on Brandon Ayuk this week for the Rams defense there as well. So expect Brock Bowers to find Juwan Jennings in this game. If he has anywhere from 6 to 7 targets, I think he does definitely clear this number. Like I mentioned, he did it against the Jets in week 1, fell a little bit short last week against the Minnesota Vikings. We're at 37. I think it's a good opportunity for him to step up in the absence of some of their key guys. And I think the one injury we need to definitely keep an eye on if this George Kittle is able to go in this game or not, who is, I believe, dealing with a hamstring injury for the 49ers. So I'm going to go Juwan Jennings over 42.5 receiving yards in this game here, Sleepy.
I like it. I think that Jennings is probably like the best cleanup on aisle 2 guy, when it comes to San Francisco. He always seems to be dependable. And I wouldn't be shocked if he went well over this. He seems like he really never lets that team down, and he's their number 1 option to go ahead and plug in any type of hole, when San Francisco needs somebody in the passing game. So clearly they're going to go ahead and use him. And I like your angle of thinking, let's pivot away from Ayuk and let's find the second option. The second option, I mean, it's more than likely it's going to be Jennings, and he's probably going to end up getting, a pretty big, I would say a pretty big target share of this game. So I like that one.
All right, Sleepy, take us over to your next player prop. If it's tight end or wherever you want to take us for your last one.
Yeah, I'm going to go tight end. I'm going to go Brock Bowers. You just said his name when you meant to say Brock Purdy, but Brock Bowers, over 44.5 receiving yards. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take him. I think that he's easily one of Minshew's top targets. Right now, he leads all tight ends in the entire league when it comes to targets, and that really says something to me. I want targets more than anything, and this guy's gone over this number of 44.5 receiving yards in his last 2 games. He has 225 plus yard receptions, so it's not just like this guy's just catching the short stuff. He's getting the yards after the catch, and I think that's pretty good. We had 9 targets, I think, in week 1, and he's had 8 targets, I think, in week 2. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to look for Bowers targets and first because, they're probably going to be 8, 9 targets. But then I also have to go back to the quarterback prop in which I was talking about with Minshew with his completion percentages. So if they're not asking him to do anything crazy, just get the ball to Bowers, let him go ahead and do his thing. I think he'll end up breaking some pretty big runs in this one. I think this line it's lined very wrong. 44.5 receiving yards seems like it feels like it's 15 yards short. So I'm going to go and play Brock Bowers over for my tight end prop, 44.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. You mentioned, right, and we talked about this last week when I gave out Brock Bowers as my tight end prop, that he's getting the targets. And I know we talk a lot about with this Raiders team is that, the attention does go to Devontae Adams, rightfully so, but 8 targets in week 1. Last week against the Ravens, 9 targets, 9 receptions, 98 yards. So again, the kind of theme has been, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it here. I think that's something that we do see here with Brock Bowers for the Las Vegas Raiders. Steve, take us over to your next player prop. What do you got?
So I'm going to apologize if I am distracted here. I'm trying desperately to play Hunter Henry over receptions right now, and it just didn't find my location as I'm betting it. So I'm trying on my phone. So bit multitasking right now. You see the sausage being made here. So Jahmyr Gibbs over 49 rushing yards is where I'm going. I talked about this on the Betting Predators podcast last night. Frankly, I like where Detroit's at right now. They lost last week. They got away from the game that they love to do, right? They love pounding the rock. Ben Johnson saw the injuries in the Tampa Bay secondary and focused on that, perhaps too much, taking advantage of the Bucs through the air. And you saw some success from Goff, but that's not the MO of Detroit. I think they really are going to turn around and rely heavily on that run game this week. I expect, more than typical results from Jahmyr Gibbs. And, you saw him start off slow this particular year, right? So week 1, he was injured in the offseason, came in, did not feel right, mentioned that he himself wasn't himself. Week 2 comes out and he feels better. He has much better production. I expect even better production because he is feeling healthier. He's doing well. I'm going to stop talking now to see if I can get this down. Jahmyr Gibbs over 49 rushing yards.
Yeah, look, when you talk about this backfield for the Detroit Lions, it's going to be primarily Jahmyr Gibbs that's going to be getting the bulk of it, right? I know that they have David Montgomery back there, maybe for red zone situations, but we know Jahmyr Gibbs is a guy that can give you not only yards, obviously, through the ground, but also through the air as well. And last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 13 carries, 84 yards for Jahmyr Gibbs. Prior to that week, got out to a little slow start. I know that he was dealing with the injury coming into the season, only had 11 attempts for 40 yards here. So this is one of the games that does have, I believe, the highest total on the board. So we could see the stats filling up in this game here for Jahmyr Gibbs and that Lions offense as well. So couldn't talk you off of Jahmyr Gibbs here. And we'll be rooting for him because he is on one of my fantasy teams here as well. Let me get over to my tight end prop, and gonna not really swing for the fences, but maybe in a buy low situation here because his tight end hasn't relatively had success early in his career here. And that's gonna be Kyle Pitts. They're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs this week on Sunday Night Football. And you take a look at just what the Chiefs have given up to the tight end position over the first 2 weeks here. So first, let me give you the number for Kyle Pitts. I believe this number was at 28.5 for Kyle Pitts here. Let me just double check because I know this number was going up and down throughout the day. So Kyle Pitts is at, 38.5 is a number. So we'll take a look at the first 2 weeks here for the Chiefs and tight ends in particular against the Chiefs. Ravens, we saw what Isaiah likely did in that first week on Thursday Night Football, right? 9 receptions on 12 targets. He had 111 yards. Fast forward to last week, the Cincinnati Bengals and their tight ends, Mike Gesicki, last week, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 91 yards. You also throw in Eric All there, 4 targets, 4 receptions on 32 yards. And you take a look overall, tight ends across the league, just up against all the teams. It's not even close on what the Chiefs are giving up to that tight end position. They're allowing 138 yards to that tight end position, which is obviously the most. The next team is the Baltimore Ravens. They're giving up 90 yards. So there's a huge difference, about 48 yards there. So I feel like this is a buy low situation. I know a lot of people are fans of Kyle Pitts because he hasn't maybe had that production through the first, couple years in the league. But I do think this could be a spot fear for him. And again, they're going up against the Chiefs, right? You're going to have to match them point for point with Patrick Mahomes in that offense, especially this week that they're maybe without obviously the running game is going to be compromised, and that running back room is thin with Isaiah Pacheco. So you may be seeing Patrick Mahomes having to throw the football, and you're going to have to match him point for point here. So I think Kyle Pitts can be involved in the game plan here for the Atlanta Falcons here. So I'll take Kyle Pitts over 38.5 receiving yards here, Sleepy.
Yeah, I like this one. I was actually thinking about this last week in the Philadelphia game when I was watching Kirk Cousins go out there and just throw a bunch of grounders and balls that were, a little bit deeper than they should have been. And he didn't look very accurate. And I'm like, why not go ahead and get the tight end involved? Why not get the running back involved? And they tried to get Bijan involved in the passing game. You and I were watching that game. I'm sure Steve was as well. Still throwing just a bunch of grounders. So, Kirk Cousins right now doesn't look very accurate, short or deep. But I would think that they're going to probably go ahead and get Pitts involved here. And like you're saying, you're playing Kansas City, so you're going to have to go ahead and try to keep pace with that team. I could see Pitts having a pretty big game here. I think that this particular prop actually would probably offer up a middle opportunity. And I think that instead of Atlanta letting Cousins go out there and try to throw the ball deep, let him get some short stuff that's comfortable to get him into a rhythm where his accuracy picks up a little bit. And I think that would, the guy would probably be Pitts to me. So I wouldn't be shocked if this, number shoots up after a couple little catches, and you could probably go ahead and play back and maybe have a nice little middle. So that's what I would be looking for, because I think that Pitts will be involved early in this game. You have to get him involved early, because otherwise, what else are you going to do? You're just going to end up keying on Bijan and maybe Drake London. So got to get the tight end involved here. I like it.
All right, so that is 4 player props each for NFL Week 3 between myself, Sleepy, and Steve there. Hopefully we do have another successful week like we did last week, going 10-2. And hopefully we're coming back next week talking about more winners. Before we do get to the Monday night football preview and our player prop best bet for Monday night football, there's a lot of great things happening right now on pregame.com. Pick packages are up, whether it's for the college level, whether it is at the NFL level. You get Uncle Dave, you get Sleepy, you could get Steve, you could get Fez, AJ Hoffman. I know he's having a great year there as well. But Sleepy, let our listeners know what could they take advantage of right now on pregame.com.
Yeah, right now at Pregame, we're running a really cool special. You guys can get 50 bulk dollars to spend any way that you want for just $10. That's like 400% bonus, on your money. That's the biggest percent bonus that Pregame offers, and you can only get one. And there's a reason why they do that, because people would go in there and spend 50 and end up with 250 bulk dollars. But this is the one promotion that they like to do, after a couple of weeks. And the reason why they do that is, for this particular deal, it gives you an opportunity to go ahead and try out Steve Reider's picks, and to try out my picks, and to go ahead and and maybe pick up a weekend package of a college football guy that you're looking at. It just gives you an opportunity to go ahead and have a sample where you don't have to invest a lot of money at all. I mean, it's $10. You get 50 bulk dollars. You guys can go ahead and probably pick up a couple picks all weekend long. So go over to pregame.com. All you guys have to do is go to pregame.com, go to the buy picks page, and you'll see it right there. It'll say bulk dollars, 50 for 10. So go ahead and do that over there at pregame.com. You're on mute.
All right. Make sure you guys get over there on pregame.com. Take advantage of that promo that we have going on right now. Gentlemen, let's get over to Monday Night Football. We do actually have 2 games this week. We'll preview here the first game that's going to be happening, which is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are in Buffalo to take on the Bills. Right now, the line stands at -5, currently over on DraftKings in favor of the Buffalo Bills. Total is sitting at 45.5 in this game. And we saw last Thursday that the Buffalo Bills went into Miami and took care of business there. Obviously, we saw the injury to Tua, but I mean, that game was, I don't want to say it was pretty much over, but I mean, you could probably hear the lady loosen up her vocal cords there with that game and how well the Buffalo Bills should come out and play. Jacksonville right now is on the opposite end of the spectrum. They are 0-2 the first 2 weeks, dropping their first 2 games of the season. Last week, they lost to the Browns 18-13. And then week 1, they took a loss to the Miami Dolphins 20-17. Steve, let me start with you on this game. If you have anything as far as the side and the total, but what are you looking at for this game?
Yeah, you said they're 0-2. They easily could be 2-0. In fact, I think there's probably a large portion of their backers and certainly the Jags base that feels that they should be 2-0. And I don't think they're really sounding the alarm bells right now out of concern. Look, there's some positive things here, right? The Jags receivers getting separation on that offense, but Lawrence hasn't had time to throw because of the defense they've been playing. That front seven has been dominant of the teams they've gone against. And now you have the Bills that doesn't really have that dominant pass rush. Linebackers are hurt. That secondary is actually very good at limiting that separation that the Jags receivers are good at. So that'll be an interesting kind of subplot to the game. But with those injuries out for the linebackers, Bernard now being out, it's going to provide some opportunity over the middle of the field for Jacksonville, certainly to get that ground game going as well. Lawrence has been taking some hits recently, and figuratively and literally. But take a look at this, right? Jacksonville had 5 drops last week. And if you factor in, like, this is a common theme. Last year, they had the most EPA loss from drops. So this is something that is continuing year after year. It's not just Trevor Lawrence not doing well. That offensive line is not protecting him. His receivers are dropping the ball when he puts it into their hands as well. On the other side of the ball, the Jags play the most man in the league, but the Bills don't have a receiver to take advantage of that scheme. They want to run the ball this year, and they've been very effective with that. You saw a lot of success from Josh Allen passing the ball and certainly running it, handing the ball off and running it himself. Jags are 0-2, like I said, could easily be 2-0. Because of the fact that the Bills want to run the ball, I think the Jags will be able to run the ball. I expect the clock to be moving a lot here, so I think that the under is worth a look, or certainly a lean in that direction. And because of those same reasons, I think that the Jags plus the points right now, there's some value to them. I think the Jags might be a little bit undervalued in the marketplace. And if you haven't listened to the Dream Pod, I suggest that you do. RJ mentioned a great trend on this. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because it kind of was complicated. And frankly, I didn't know if it would be good for me to say it on something in this kind of form. But, it certainly lends itself to Jacksonville being the side to back here. So just a lean on the Jags and the under.
All right, Sleepy, what do you got for this game for the Jags and the Bills?
Yeah, Jaguar is probably one of my stronger picks of the week. When I look at both of these teams, I don't think they're really all that much, separated from how good they could probably be. I'll probably lean a little bit stronger to the Bills, as the better team here, only because they have Josh Allen. But I'm still not 100% sold on Buffalo, being a much, much better team. I like playing on desperate teams early in the season, especially if, their record doesn't indicate who they are. And I think that that's really the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. They could have won the game for sure, but you got to be pissed off, looking up and going, we've played pretty good football, but we don't have a win yet. And I think they come into Buffalo. I think they're going to be pissed off. And you have a Buffalo team that's 2-0 off of a big division win. I can only think maybe a little bit of a letdown. And then obviously I think we're going to get a step up here with Jacksonville. I would probably make this line maybe like Bills -3. I think, we're getting over the 3. We're getting over the 4. I think you have to take this at the Jaguars like +5, +5.5. So that's where I'm at. I like this. I think the Jaguars show up this week. And like Steve said, he's looking at this game to go under. Anytime somebody's thinking about the under, I'm always automatically thinking about the dog, especially if they're getting, over 3 or 4 points. So I think that's the way that I'm going to go here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it similar to the Ravens, right? That you don't want to start going 0-3. Especially when you're already 2 games behind in that AFC South division, that the Texans sitting at 2-0, the rest of the teams are 0-2 in that division. And again, you just paid Trevor Lawrence all this money to be the future quarterback of this franchise. And again, with this Bills team, you guys mentioned that we could sit here talking about this team could be 1-1 because they were trailing by double digits in week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals. And it took a heroic effort from Josh Allen for them to come back and win that game. So I do like the spot here, the more desperate team here on the road. I agree with Sleepy. I think this line is a little inflated here. I do understand that the Bills have that extra rest coming off of that Thursday night football game here, but I think this might be a game where I'm looking at Travis Etienne. I'll throw an extra prop out there for him to have a really good game out of the backfield, whether it's through the air or whether that is rushing the football for the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, let's get over to our player prop best bet to wrap up NFL Week 3 here. Steve, you alluded to it earlier, a little tease, a little segue here. I'll let you lead it off here, man. We're 1-1 for the season. Let's get back on track here. Where are we going for our player prop best bet?
Yeah, I like Jamar Chase over 80 receiving yards. T. Higgins is back, and a lot of people might say, well, now he's got competition for receptions. Well, first off, number one, we don't even know if he's physically starting for them. That's the first thing. And if he's on the field, I think it's going to garner some attention from that secondary. So for me, I think that him playing is actually a benefit. I think Burrow started off slow, like he always does, but he showed some signs of life last week. He's improving, just like he always does every year. And, Chase is his number one target, right? In college with the Bengals, he's going to get the targets. There's no doubt about it. And, that's all great. Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the league. When Burrow is healthy and functional, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The reason why I like this so much is take a look at what's going on with Washington. Just this year, we're not going to the last year. We can just stay in this year. Malik Neighbors had 10 receptions, 127 yards and a touchdown. Had Malik Neighbors caught that 11th one that was right in his hands, Giants win the game. They don't. Congratulations, Commanders. I'm not bitter. Mike Evans, right? Tampa Bay, 5 receptions, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. Same team, Chris Godwin, 8 receptions, 83 yards and a touchdown. These are monster numbers to the receivers already this season, and there's no reason to suspect that Washington's defense is going to be doing anything better. So I bet, and I like Jamar Chase over 80 receiving yards.
Yeah, and you mentioned, right, that with T. Higgins coming back, we'll see how many snaps he's actually out there, but obviously that's just another wide receiver that this team or the defense for the Commanders has to cover. And I mean, you talk about how bad this Commanders defense has been going back to last season. I mean, this was a team where I was just automatically playing the opposing quarterback's longest completion to go over because they give up those big plays. And when you talk about a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, who also another team that are 0-2 in a desperate spot here, let's not forget that because they are in that AFC North right now where, teams have gone off to a better start. Case in point with the Steelers. We talked about the Ravens here as well. So this is a definitely winnable game here for the Cincinnati Bengals. I like what I saw last week from this team, in particular from Joe Burrow. I know there's been a lot of question marks about his wrist and such, but the Commanders right now allowing the 5th most receiving yards to receivers thus far this season. In Steve mentioned what they gave up to Malik Neighbors last week. Chris Godwin, week 1. Chris Godwin, 83 receiving yards. Mike Evans had a big game for them there as well. So I think this could be the coming out party for Jamar Chase for this season, at least. I know he's still in that. He's a little bitter about the contract situation, but when it comes down to it, I think Jamar Chase will be able to have a big game here in this game. So I wholeheartedly agree with this, with Jamar Chase going over 80.5 receiving yards here. Sleepy, what do you think about our player prop here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a home run type of prop for me. I mean, the Bengals right now are a little bit stinky, right? Burrow's a little bit stinky. I mean, they're not playing good football right now, but this is the team to get right, to get all that stink off you. And if you put the ball in your 2 best players' hands, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, you can't go wrong. And this is the right team to do it against. And if Jamar Chase wants to go out there and make a big statement like, hey, you guys are going to pay me, he's going to go over this number by halftime. I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not sure if Steve looked at this. I'm probably sure that he did. Which wide receiver is going to lead the league in receiving this week? Jamar Chase's odds, they can't be all that great. I'm guessing that he might even go off as the favorite. He's going to have a monster week here. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up with 10 catches, 200 yards in this game. But this is going to be probably his biggest game of the year, I would think. And I'm sure that he's telling Burrow, like, look, dude, well, I got to get paid. You better get me the ball this week. Let's just go do this thing and let's flip this all around. So Big week for Jamar Chase. I'm going to predict he goes over by halftime. That's where I'm at with this prop right now.
All right, there it is. So a player prop best bet, Jamar Chase over 80.5 receiving yards on Monday night against the Washington Commanders. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this NFL Week 3 edition of the Prop Show. Steve, anything else you want to mention, my man, before we get out of here?
No, obviously a lot of success last week. Obviously, it doesn't mean that we're going to go 10-2 this week. That's why we grind and we work our tail off and try to find the best lines for you folks. Obviously shop around. We talk about it every time. Line shop, be price sensitive about everything. Right now over 80 receiving yards at minus 115 is, maybe not as good as something that's over 82 at plus money, that kind of stuff. Make sure you're looking at that, have multiple outs. Always, you can't possibly win if you're playing just at one book. The more books that you have, it increases your chances of winning money. And certainly do that, shop around, and hopefully we have another great week this week.
Yeah, 100%. Like you mentioned, it's when we're talking about these props, and again, I think we've mentioned this prior to as well, either it's side totals, player props, you always want to get that best of the number because sometimes that is the difference between you winning or losing. Sleepy, anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, kind of echo a little bit of what Steve was saying. Shop around for the best number. But I'll say this is that you guys are getting this podcast either late Thursday night, early Friday morning. You need to bet them as soon as you hear this. Don't wait until Sunday. You guys are trying to bet this stuff, 10 minutes before kickoff, an hour before kickoff, or even Sunday morning. You're going to end up a losing better. That's just the nature of this beast that we deal with. Munaf and I'll tell you, going through the NBA season, giving out all the props that we did, we were probably like 80-85% to the right side of the line move. And then the line's moving closer to game time. It was like, all right, well, we lost value. There were games where, we were a point, 2 points ahead. So you guys have to go ahead and bet this stuff as early as possible. We get it. We're not perfect. We're not going to hit 100% of these props knowing which way they're going to move. But I would say 75-80% of the time, we're going to be on the right guy going in the right direction. And you guys need to be on that first. So that's what I'll say. With the success that we had last week, just don't go crazy. Like Steve said, we're not going to go 10-2 again. Maybe we'll go 11-1. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're gonna have weeks where it's gonna be like week 2, 10-2, and then there's gonna be weeks where we're maybe sitting at 6-6, or we have a down week, or maybe we have a week where we go 12-0. But it's a grind of the season, right? And it's only week 3. So again, when we talk about the NFL season, it's definitely a marathon. It's not a sprint. So again, bear responsibly when we talk about these player props, as when again, always get the best of the number. All right, we'll be back next week for NFL Week 4. Hopefully talking about some more winners, and we'll get into the games, obviously, in our player props for NFL Week 4. So look out for us then. Appreciate all the support and the listeners that we've gotten. We've gotten a lot of tweets about, listeners having a lot of success with our player props. Hopefully we can continue doing that in NFL Week 3. All right, good luck with your bets, and we'll talk to you guys down the road.